Hello, anti-novelists. I am back with getting into our next act. Okay, so we've covered Act 1. We've gone all the way up to the turning point, and now we're ready to take a look at Act 2. This is where things get fun. This is where the action starts to speed up. This is, remember, where I call it the discoveries and the milestones that start churning. Your character is learning things, they're making discoveries, they're putting clues together. That's leading to milestones that's driving them through the story. In Act 2, I've got enemies and allies, games and trials, and earning respect. Those are taken from Derek Murphy's plot dot. I've also added confrontations and setback, questions for the pre-midpoint. How is my main character going to execute their plan? How are they going to achieve their goal, avoid the thing they're afraid of? What is their plan? Because as a result of things that happen in here, they're going to be denied their plan. And that's part of landing on a good midpoint. Because if up to this point, they're like, okay, here's how I'm going to get this done. And then at the midpoint, it's like, that's not going to work. And now I've got to start over. They have to formulate a new plan. Remember, people love stories that have good challenges, good conflict, and good development. Well, the way that you do that is by throwing obstacles in their way. So let's continue looking. I've got the first battle, and it says Road of Trials, failing, the antagonist attacks. At some point, as you get into Act 2, with all of these fun things, they're meeting people, they're figuring things out, you want to remind your readers that there's a bad guy out there, right? There is an antagonist that wants to kick the behind of your main character. So definitely include reasons for your readers to worry about your main characters. I've added forces of evil, problem revealed, and truth and ultimatum, the bad guys are closing in. Then I've got notes, action and obstacles, stop in one's own struggle to help someone else. That's another way of showing that your main character is worth investing in, because they do something selfless when they themselves are being threatened. That's not original to me. A lot of people have talked about using that as a trope, but it works. It makes people look at that character, empathize with them, and want to see them win. So at the end of Act 2, you should be roughly 50% through your story. Now, again, those percentages can waver a bit. It's just a metric. By the time you get to the end of Act 2, you should be about in the middle. With that said, I introduced you to the conflict matrix in an earlier video, and I want to take a look at how you can employ this to drive your story forward. So let's say you get partway into Act 2 and you're stuck on how to challenge your character. You're not sure, how am I going to push them through to that midpoint where they go from being a victim and reactive to being a warrior and being proactive? Well, one way to do it is to take a look at the conflict matrix. So for example, let's say you have already introduced a friend of your main character, and that friend has great potential to have some conflict, okay? So let's just take a look at some of the options. I've got an abduction, I've got an arrest, an argument, being delivered bad news, a break-in, a car accident. I've got bias, like a biased opinion or an attitude bias. I've got an eviction or being exiled. I've got being excluded from something, some kind of failure, some kind of fear or phobia, or a fight. Fight could be emotional or physical. What about a financial gain or loss? Some kind of identity, like a mistaken identity or a hidden identity, right? You could introduce some kind of secret identity action going with their friend that throws your character off of their kilter. Kidnapping, some kind of intrusion, some kind of misbelief or misunderstanding. Person goes missing. Ooh, mistaken identity. That person is not who your character thought they were. Twist, dun dun dun. Plans have changed. They're poisoned. Some kind of sabotage. What if the person who is painted as being your main character's friend is actually jealous of them, or holds some kind of grudge, and therefore there is a sabotage? sabotage by a friend is a great twist. So you see how to use the conflict matrix as just a quick shorthand way to glance over the elemental characters in your story and take a look at what you can throw at them. Okay, so that's how that functions. Anytime you get stuck, pull out your conflict matrix and just take a look at, okay, this is where my characters are. This is where I need to get them to. What conflicts and challenges can I use to accomplish that? So that brings us to the end of Act 2. I will pick up next time with Act 3, and we'll talk about how we get your character beyond the midpoint, beyond reacting to what's happened there, and up to the doorway, which becomes the step into Act 4, which is the wrap up, the climax of the story. So get cracking on those notes. Start fleshing out what kinds of conflicts you can use to drive your character to the midpoint and past it, and I'll see you in the next video.